welcome to Afternoon Tea from Bookends. I'm Anita.
And I'm Gerald.
And today we're going to pick up where we left off last time. We talked about story. We talked about what a story is last time. And today we're going to pick up the plot, the delivery mechanism for the story. How, once you've got your story, what do you do with it? How do you tell that story?
Yes.
So things like, whose story is it, would be the first question I would ask. And we're going to specifically look at your method of plotting, which I think is really interesting and something I've learned quite a lot from.
Yeah.
Because, believe it or not, I never used to plot very much. Once I had my story, I thought I'd plotted.
Yeah.
Which is why it took me 2 years each to write the first 2 books. Because you write, you rewrite, you rework, you get to the middle, you think, oh no, that's not right, I've gone the wrong, and you rework it as you go, and it takes forever.
Yeah. I think the whole concept behind how I plot a story. So if you've seen last week's video, we'll talk about overall story structure. But now we're sort of going below that into delivering that story through a number of different scenes. And the whole purpose of that is to make our storytelling through our books more efficient. And just a little anecdote, we were at a sort of meet the author thing in Norwich. And a crime writer there, I can't remember his name, not important, said that he rewrote his novels about 10 times.
Yeah, I probably did that with my first 2 novels as well.
I just... makes me shiver. So really, my whole idea is to generate the story, create the story in shorthand form first, when it's easier to manage, rather than taking the whole novel with 50, 80,000 words and trying to deal with that. Yeah. You deal with smaller parts of it.
Yeah. And because there are so many books to write and so many ideas and so many stories to tell, spending so long on each one isn't very, it's very frustrating.
It is very frustrating. It can be frustrating.
It can be.
So where I left off last time was when I had 5 paragraphs describing my story. And that's the end of my use of the Randy Ingermanson's snowflake method. And then I break off and I come to Blake Snyders' Save the Cat. And Save the Cat writes a novel. And Romancing the Beat. There's lots of books about Blake Snyders' Save the Cat method. And once again, it's about breaking the story into smaller elements. And my minimum element is a scene. Yes.
You write by scenes, which is a film technique. It's the way films are made, scene by scene.
Yeah. So I can picture, I can hold a whole scene in my head with all the characters, what's happened before, what's got to happen afterwards, what's got to happen within the scene, and how it fits within the whole story. Yeah. So I start, so I'm going to go down to scene level. Yeah. Now, Blake Snyder, Save the Cat, developed 15 story beats. Right. Not all beats are equal, and for instance, what I've done, you can't really see this, but I'll put it up here, is I break a whole novel down into nominally 40 scenes. So the first 4 beats, which are called opening, image, setup, theme, stated, catalyst, are all 1 scene each. So, okay, so is each beat a scene? So far. So far, each beat is a scene. So far. Beat 5, which is debate, which is where the main character doubts the journey that they're about to go on. So he has to work out whether he or she really wants to go on this journey. Yeah. That's a bigger beat, and in this case, it has 10 scenes. Wow. To it. It's not. Again,
So who's he debating with? The whole country?
So that's where I'm going. I'm delving down into scenes within the story beats, the 15 story beats.
So can I just say now that there are some people, and we know people, who feel that this is far too prescriptive. That this is telling you it's a kind of template for how to write a story, and they feel inhibited by that, or slightly frustrated, and feel that's not very creative.
I can understand that, but I've been writing long form fiction for 15 years. At one stage I had over 30 novels, long form works in the pipeline, started incomplete, because I couldn't face the prospect of rewriting 50, 60, 70,000 words, because I've got other stories I want to tell. So what in effect what I did is just park them and wrote more stories. So I had well over 1 million words of long form fiction on my hard disk.
Okay.
So I sort of understand story. I understand what makes a good story. And what I wanted to be, this is what I said right at the start, was to be more efficient.
Yes.
To be able to complete and finish a story, either submit it to agents or publishers or self-publish, and move on to the next one.
Yes.
Because there are always more stories to tell.
Yep.
And and I can honestly say, since discovering Save the Cat about 4 to 5 years ago, and working with it and working with various methods, like, you know, I showed you this piece of paper with scenes on them. I'm now using a thing called Plotter, link below, which, yeah, that'll do, graphically shows the layout of the story. So it has story beats across the top. So again, you see one scene for each of the first 4 story beats.
Oh, right. Oh, I see.
In this case,
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Debase has got 6 scenes.
Okay.
What? But it should have 10 scenes. It doesn't
But
matter.
it has whatever you make it.
It has whatever I make
Or
it.
whatever the story requires it to be. It's not you, it's the story that's you're servicing the needs of the story.
Exactly.
Telling
What
it
I think
efficiently.
what I think the story needs for it to be told. So that's, and I'm always in control. I'm always dictating where the story goes, because, as in last week's video, I've got the single sentence
Yeah.
and the 2-sentence premise to guide me.
Right.
This is a story I want to tell.
So what about those people who say to you, but when I start writing the story, I discover new things about my character and I let my character tell the story, and then they go off and do extraordinary things which I couldn't have imagined before I started writing. That used to be me.
Yeah, and it used to be me, and it is a lot of people. But I've developed in my writing career. I know how to tell a story. I want to tell the stories and get the stories told. And while it sits on my hard disk, it's not a story that's told. So it's very hard to not come across as being a bit arrogant and conceited. But I've done that. I've done that exploration of story and trying to find my writing genre and my writing muse and my muscle and all that sort of stuff. I've done all that.
Yeah.
I want to tell the stories now. So the idea is, as in last week's video, I create a story at the top level, and I spend a long time creating those 5 paragraphs of a story, and even the 40 scenes or 30 scenes or 50 scenes or however many turns out in the plan. At that stage, I print that out. I print out the descriptions of the scenes out, and I end up with 2,500-3,000 words of a long synopsis. And I sit out in the sun, maybe not today, but I sit out in the sun with a pen, and I go through that and I read that, and that's my whole story. And I know I'm sort of labouring this thing, but that is my story there. Yes, there may be other things, like, for instance, when you read my book Corruption.
Yes.
And you said, I really like this character of a journalist, yes. Jerry Sanders. He's and his friends in the pub and the people he interacts with. I really like how that works. So what I've done, I haven't changed anything in that story. I thought I've taken that character and now dropped him into a story I've been working on in another NaNoWriMo a few years ago as the key character in that, which changed the story a bit.
Yes.
But then the story developed around him and because of him. And I hadn't written, I'd written some words in that, but they weren't serious words. But I can replot that story from beginning, midpoint, end, and that is then the book that's coming out soon. And then there's another story, and then there's another story with that character, and then there's another character you picked out of another book. And you say, "Oh, I quite like this. She's an interesting character." Yes, she has her own series of books. So if you're going through a story, starting at the beginning with no real idea of where you're going, if you find yourself deviating, that's fine. You may want to explore different things. If you want to be a productive writer, you've done your planning and you're writing to your plan, and then you suddenly decide, or you suddenly realise that it's going in a different direction, then you take that different direction, put it to one side, but carry on.
Good idea.
Finish your story.
Yes, finish the story you're telling, and then tell a different story.
Otherwise, you'll never finish anything.
I think that's really interesting. And for me, I think what you're describing here and the plot is like an underlying technique that you need to learn as a novelist. Any artist needs to learn a technique in order to deliver their art. So I might say, as a dancer, I just want to be able to spin and leap. But unless I've done the ballet bar for years and years and years,
yes.
I'll never be able to do those things very well. And the same with a musician. If you don't do your scales and arpeggios, you won't be able to play a concerto on the piano or whatever instrument. And although the scales and arpeggios and the pliés and the ballet bar aren't the dance or the music,
yes,
they're the means by which you can deliver the dance and the music. So understanding the technique of storytelling, understanding the technique of plotting is fairly important as you mature as a writer, to understand that in order to deliver story after story in the way that you're talking about. I
think you're right to a certain extent. I think you do have to write a lot, and people say 10,000 hours.
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours to become an expert in something.
Yeah.
And they say about writing 1 million words before you can write properly. Not necessarily the case, but I think you need to develop your writing style. You need to explore what you want to write. I've tried to write fantasy, I've tried to write humour, I've tried to write romance, I've tried to write erotica too.
How was that? I don't think I've seen any of that.
No, you haven't, because it was rubbish. So I found my niche. I found the genres I like to write in, that I read in, and that I think my readers like to read my stories in. I found my writing style. I've done all that.
You found your author voice.
Yeah, I found my author voice, and so it's not. There's still, so if you like, even though the structure has a name called Save the Cat and it's written by somebody else, that's within me now. Yeah. That I understand that. So when I'm writing my not my one sentence, my two sentence, but by the time I get to my 5 paragraphs, I know where the dark night of the soul is going to be. I know what the midpoint is going to be. So I create those 5 paragraphs with Save the Cat in mind, with the sort of key moment, the key turning points in the story, and make sure that they are, you know, somewhere roughly where they're supposed to be. So it's not. It's a very easy thing to say that having a structure to your stories makes it prescriptive, makes it restricting, makes it boring for the writer. I get fantastically excited when I start a new story.
Yes.
And I love the fact that once I've done my planning, I've got my scene descriptions, I've done my long synopsis, I've worked on my long synopsis. And this is what James Patterson does, because although he sort of writes his books, he does all this. He has a very, very detailed plan that he then hands off to somebody else to actually write the book. But he's created the story in detail, and that's what I'm doing. Now, once I've done that, and I've got my scene descriptions, and I sit down at my computer, and I think, and what I do on my computer, again, I'll share this. This is what Scrivener, which is what I use to write the story. This is what it looks like. So there's scene, 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 scene. So it looks identical, and I do each scene in turn, and I can write out of sequence. I can write the end scene. I sometimes do write the midpoint. Sometimes do that. Each scene then becomes a work in itself,
Right.
and that's a different side of your writing skills. Is the creation of good sentences, basically, and good paragraphs that pick up from the story coming into it, that leave off the story going out of it with hopefully some sort of suspense, not a cliffhanger, but just something to get the reader turning the page into the next chapter. And I know what has to happen in that. So I'm in my head totally then. All these charts and things disappear. This scene is all I'm concentrating on. And that's also tremendously exciting. That's the real nitty-gritty of writing, and bringing out your characterization and describing locations and using all your senses and all these sort of, you know, showing, not telling, all these
techniques.
All these techniques that we learn as writers are put into that stage of it, because I know the overall story structure is sound and works.
So you can build your little mini stories, mini arcs, scenes within that.
Yeah.
So if when you're writing a scene, do you ever surprise yourself by something happens that you hadn't expected?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes I add little bits in as I'm writing, as I'm with my characters in a particular situation, and something silly in the book that's due to come out, Body on the Beach, is about the door of the cafe.
Oh yes,
and
yes, I've read that.
and about young people who come and sort of bash the door, and it bangs against the. It's like a recurring joke. And it keeps on popping up when they try to fix it, and it then goes the wrong way and it's too hard to open. So it's like just a little sort of joke bit that comes. That came
wasn't
out of
in the plot.
No. Good God, no. And it's just because I was in the cafe with my characters sitting at the next table, and then the door bangs open. I thought, why would the door bang open? Oh, because it's not got one of those little closer things on it, and that could be irritating to the cafe owner. And so it's little things like that you introduce because you're with your characters in the scene.
Yeah, it's the detail then, isn't it? You
It's the detail.
come into that level of detail, and as you said, how does it feel to be there?
Yes.
What does it smell like? What's the weather like outside? And that's not in your plot. None of that is in your plot. Unless it's relevant. Like it was pouring with rain, so she had to get a taxi, and that's part of the story.
Yes.
But if just those things that... Yeah, I once read a very sound piece of advice that if you get stuck, just put weather in.
Really?
Yeah, weather's good.
Oh, it's Raymond Chandler's advice. If you ever get stuck, have a character come into the room with a gun.
Yeah, I write romance though, so I don't know how that would
are there no
work.
guns in romance?
Well, not in the ones I write. No, there might be in some, but not in the ones I write.
Oh dear.
No.
Never mind. Maybe one day.
So, final question.
Yes. Oh.
Why is it called Save the Cat?
And it's very strange because it's nothing to do with story beats, film, or anything. It's a little technique that they're using in film storytelling, where if your main character has got to do things that might antagonise the viewer, so they've got to fight someone or kill someone, what you do is you have them save a cat early on, and it's save the cat in quotation marks. So they do something nice, they do something for a child, or pick an old lady up off the floor, or something like that. Something
kind.
So instantly the viewer stroke reader has good feelings towards that character. So later on, when they're killing multiple people and breaking people's necks and stuff, I think, oh, but he saved a cat, so that's all right. He's doing it for a good reason. And so it's quite clever, and that save the cat thing goes in early in the story.
Right.
And so that then colours the viewer's opinion of that character all the way through then.
Good.
It's good. It's very clever. So I think that's about it. Yeah, 24 minutes, blimey.
So, thank you for joining us on today's podcast. If you like this, give us a thumbs up. And if you want to hear more from us, click the bell, and YouTube will let you know when there's another one of these comes out.
Yeah, after you're subscribed, of course.
After you've subscribed. So, thank you for watching Afternoon Tea from Bookends.
More cakes.
We've got more cakes. We're going to have to eat them. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. You going to say hello this time? Did you say hello last time?
I did, but I'll say hello again. Stollen's nice, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Some of us have been talking. Christmas on a plate. The trouble is I can't speak now. It's not equal. It's not bloody hell. For instance, pardon me. We do need that that closing credits script there.
So, thank you for watching.